And a very good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome along to the Marketing Matinee. My name is Michael John Oliver from MJO Creative, and over the next hour, we'll be exploring some of the big issues shaping the world of marketing. And if you like what you see and hear, remember to like and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to follow us on LinkedIn, you can also follow us there and on YouTube. Just search for Marketing Matinee. Plenty of good stuff coming up this afternoon. We'll be talking to Livvy Moore, who is the creative director at This Here, about why sports brands need to be asking better questions when it comes to marketing for women. Plus, Rowena Wilding from Wilding Marketing will be joining me on the We Need to Talk panel, because we'll be exploring what is a fractional CMO and whether we've found the worst LinkedIn ad of all time. So settle in, dim the house lights, because the matinee is about to start. So let's begin, as we always do here on the Marketing Matinee, with Act 1. Livvy Moore is a creative director at London agency This Here, and the author of a piece that featured on The Drum called Dear Sports Fans, or Dear Sports Brands, Please Stop Speaking to Me Like I'm a Man, where she implores sports brands to stop indulging in tired male-centric cliches and to start asking better questions, particularly when marketing to women. So why do sports brands still struggle with this? And why do they treat women consumers like they're a Rubik's Cube that needs to be solved? Let's find out.
Woman who can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 60 seconds. I can tell you now, my brain works nothing like a Rubik's Cube, and neither does any woman's. I think that we often try and segment, because that's how our products are made. You know, we have men's clothing and women's clothing. But the truth is, when we're doing something at a brand level, we're talking to people. And anything that kind of overly segments ultimately creates division. Whereas when we look at speaking to the human being, we're looking for themes that relate to everybody, right? And that's just good brand marketing. And I think that the confusion between product marketing can sometimes bleed into gendered marketing, which I don't think is necessary.
So even if we were to ask the right people the right questions, do sports brands have the right people to deliver on those answers? I.e., do sports brands just simply need more women marketers to market to women?
Yes, but I don't think that sports brands just need more women to market to women. I think they just need more women, full stop. I don't think there's a single sports brand that I've walked into where it's been a 50-50 split, and not even close. And I think it also translates into the agencies that a lot of sports brands tend to hire. That subconscious bias comes in again. And I think the point of my article is that, yes, obviously women understand how to market to other women, but women also are just great at marketing. And actually, if we are more inclusive in the teams that we build from day one, then the output of the stuff we make will be more inclusive and therefore resonate with a larger body of consumers.
It's a really interesting point that you kind of touch on this as well when you write about the importance of You write about the importance of storytelling in sports marketing to women. You're saying women need to buy into that female athlete's story and see her not just as a sporting icon, but as a fashion one as well. And I think this raises really interesting questions, not just about the style and art direction, but also around the importance of imagery and why this shouldn't be taken for granted. particularly as it relates to sports marketing, particularly marketing to women. Why is fashion imagery so important, and why is it so often left out?
I think I sort of referenced it in my article, but the way that we have built up male athletes in society is like the same as Superman or Spider-Man or Batman. They're, especially footballers, right? Like, we put them on these pedestals, we print their faces on football cards, football stickers, you know, we put them on billboards. And so they kind of become these like larger than life statues. And I remember like being a kid, and David Beckham had like a little Mohican. And every single boy in my class all of a sudden had a Mohican, right? And so the way that we think about influence is very much how men have been historically influenced by male athletes. Now, when it comes to women, unfortunately, you know, female athletes are not held up in the same kind of iconic status. They should be, but they're not. And we certainly don't just look at female athletes as our only source of inspiration or the only thing that might influence our purchase choices. And so whilst absolutely we might be completely inspired by their story, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to buy the outfit that she's wearing. And that mindset of, if a famous sporting figure is wearing your clothes, then people will buy it, is completely male dominated. It's completely set up in the way that traditionally pillars of influence or advertising has worked towards men. And so, yes, when you're speaking to a female demographic, it's awesome to use amazing women in sports and to tell their stories and to show how great they look in the outfits. All I'm suggesting is that more needs to be done in order to get a woman to click purchase than perhaps for a man.
I think I mentioned this, it raises questions not only about art direction and, you know, the broader creative question as well, but do you feel that, you know, sports brands are sort of prone to repeating cliches and sort of indulging that, thinking, well, this has worked in the past, surely it will work now?
Absolutely. I don't even think it's just about repetition of old campaigns. I think it's about repetition of an old set of ideals and principles. I find it really frustrating when, irrespective of the type of brand, when a new project comes, you know, to life, and the response is to give a carbon copy of something that you've either thought of before or essentially that your competitors are doing. And I think many sports brands are quite guilty of it. They are so afraid of moving out of the parameters that they are used to shooting in. And I mean that in terms of the environments or the kind of the photography style, that it actually prevents them from thinking of anything new. And the truth is, everybody's in a race, right? All of these brands are in a race to try and, you know, be the best. And the one that embraces a new way of doing things, invents a new way of doing things when it comes to their art direction, ultimately, I believe, will be the one that wins.
It's also interesting how it's the perception that the consumer wants this anyway. Like, you touch on the idea that the imagery used is very literal. Like, we must advertise sports in sports places. We must use stadiums. We must use sports fields. We must show them playing sports because it is sports and you like sports, right? Right. But there's also the, you know, the coming together of so many different influences. So it's not just fashion, but also there are aspects of politics and culture as well. It's all kind of coming together. And as much as brands are sort of kind of walking the fine line between, you know, we want to promote our product to as many people as possible, but we don't want to get kind of quote unquote thrown into the culture wars. That seems to be happening anyway. But is there a room for kind of political imagery as well as either, you know, the sporting imagery and the fashion industry, in the fashion imagery as well? And it's less about how do we make sure that people know that we're talking about sports, and rather how can we still tell a compelling story, and how can we really bring this to life in a creative way?
I think that it isn't about any of those things, is the honest answer. I don't think it's about fixating on whether sport is right or whether it's time to move to fashion or whether we need to be political or we need to be less political. I think the issue is that from what I've seen anyway, sports brands are asking the wrong questions again and again and again. They are asking questions like, should we be more sports? Should we be more fashion? Should we be more political? Should we be less political? Instead of asking, what do I want the consumer to feel? What do I want their takeaway to be? What do I want the consumer to do? What's the message that I'm trying to put out? What's the objective that I'm trying to hit? And then taking a step back and letting the kind of creatives come in and say, well, if this is what you want to do, then maybe we could try it this way. And so I think, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to the question you asked. I think the issue is that that isn't the question. And the moment that sports brands understand that asking the right questions impacts everything is the moment that they are allowing themselves to be opened up to change.
I think the idea around storytelling it's a really potent one, and I think it also really brings it back to kind of like the fundamental nature of why these products exist in the first place and what goes through a person's mind before they purchase anything. You write, we don't care why you love it, i.e. the brand. We care why we will love it, i.e. women. So this strikes me as being such a common trope in the world I come from in B2B marketing, where brands talk a lot about themselves and about why the products are so technologically advanced or cutting edge, but much less about the kind of problems they solve and how a person will feel and why this is actually good. Why it seems to me to be such an effective tactic, and is there something that should be done more, and what kind of storytelling needs to be done to make that more of a feature?
I think the answer is quite simple: stories that are worth telling. I think that obviously it's really cool, like some of the tech innovation that goes into some of these sports products. But sometimes that innovation isn't there, and that isn't a storyline. And sometimes it is. And so I'm not saying that we should never talk about technical benefits. But again, it comes back to, are we asking the right questions? So the question should be, is the technical benefit a good story? Something that a consumer will, obsess over and that will encourage them to purchase? Or is it just something that we feel like we need to say because, our competitor said something similar last season?
Is that just a fundamental lack of just basic marketing principles? Much less, let's talk about ourselves more, and we need to talk about ourselves. And if we're not talking about the brand, that salience won't sink in with the consumer. And we talked, about almost like cliches and laziness, but it's perhaps the most banal of marketing cliches, isn't it? We need to talk about why we're the best, and then we need to repeat upon that. It's almost as if it's a very, not even a different way of thinking, but just a little tweak. If marketers do that, the benefits are obvious.
I think that a lot of it comes down to internal politics. I think a huge amount of advertising is created out of fear of not wanting to rock the boat because it might upset their boss, and their boss isn't ready, or is perceived to not be ready. And I think the politics in sports brands often gets in the way of doing the right work. And that's why, again, I would encourage any sports brand, if they are listening to this podcast, to really boil it back down to asking better questions.
Okay. Imagery is always never far from any discussion of sports. And you mentioned in the piece that we don't need everything to be hyper feminine. And this seems to me one of the common things that marketers of all stripes trip up on, and that the antidote to kind of brash male-centric marketing is to do the exact opposite. And that ends up being an overcorrection. What do you think the best way is to avoid that? Is it's really a case of it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that? It's not one size fits all. Is it just simply a case of right from the very beginning of planning a campaign, being very clear about how far you are going to go, and it's not, we don't need to be the anti of what we've done before, but we need to be smarter? What's the thinking behind it?
I think you need to take gender out of it entirely. I think when you're marketing to men, you need to stop thinking that you're marketing to men. And when you're marketing to women, you need to stop thinking that you're marketing to women. The truth is, you're putting your advert out into the world for anybody to see. And how that is received is entirely up to the user. And so I would say it comes back to, again, the key themes that I've talked to you about already. First of all, ask the right questions. Instead of trying to work out how do we win with women, ask a smarter question. What is it that you actually want people to think, feel, or do? And try to answer that brief instead, rather than getting hung up on questions like, is it feminine enough or is it too feminine? And then the second thing is storytelling. Ultimately, I mentioned this earlier, but when we are trying to build a brand, we ultimately are trying to cure division and bring unity, right? We want everybody to love our product. And it strikes me as odd that when we are marketing to one specific gender in our comms, we draw a really harsh line down the middle, which creates that division even further. But the truth is, any good marketing campaign focuses in on a human-based characteristic, a human theme, moral, whatever you want to call it, that ultimately everybody can believe in. It's something that transcends gender. It transcends geography a lot of the time. It transcends age, for the most part, and really speaks to everybody because it comes from here, right? And so I think that if brands stopped looking at their female-led campaigns as female-led campaigns and instead looked at them at a moment to tell a beautiful brand story through the lens of a woman, that they would see epic results in return.
Livvy Moore from This Here. And if you want to read Livvy's piece, and I highly, highly recommend that you do, there will be a link to it on our LinkedIn page there. Remember, you can add comments or any thoughts and feelings about what you hear on the Marketing Matinee. Just leave a comment and we will talk to it. We'll speak to it. My goodness, what are we talking about? My goodness, we need to talk. You see, ladies and gentlemen, in a previous life, this podcast had a very different name, very different perspective too. It was called We Need to Talk, and it's exactly what it sounds like. On every episode, I spoke with someone in the wider world of marketing about the big issues that are surrounding the industry. It was as close as I was prepared to get to talk radio, but just without the problematic things like having Colin from Portsmouth call up to give his tuppence worth on Nigel Farage. But I didn't want to abandon the whole thing when I started the Marketing Matinee. Instead, I thought I could just fold it in to the makeup of this show. So for Act number 2 in this week's Marketing Matinee features the wonderful Rowena Wilding of Wilding Marketing, because, ladies and gentlemen, on this show, we have issues and we absolutely need to talk. Now it's time on the part of the Marketing Matinee where we have issues, and oh my goodness,
we need to talk.
We absolutely need to talk. And joining me on the matinee this week is the wonderful Rowena Wilding from Wilding Marketing. Hello, Rowena.
Hi, we need to talk. How I've missed talking to you.
I've missed it as well. And oh my God, isn't it interesting that it doesn't matter how much things change and yet how much things stay the same, particularly in the world of marketing. I mean, we have so many things to discuss, and I'm going to start as I intend to go on with something I found on cursed website linkedin.com. And anyone who's on LinkedIn as much as we are have seen just and been inundated with suggested posts and promoted posts and blah blah blah. But I saw what I think, and I'm sure you agree with me here. This might be the worst thing ever published on LinkedIn. So let's get it up on screen here. So What we have here is a promoted post from something called One Man Empire, which sounds like the worst kind of like Nickelback cover band name you've ever freaking heard of. And it's not even so much the copy. We'll get to the copy, but this disaster piece of imagery. What we have here, and I'm just going to just look at it through the eyes of an amateur. I mean, I went to the National Portrait Gallery once or twice. I know my way around art. But what we have here is an AI-generated image of a man on a deconstructed toilet, very postmodern. He seems to be in midst of something, a terrible incident, more than just a bodily catastrophe. It looks like something, all kinds of things are going on. We've got broken walls. We've got a clock that doesn't. Actually, the numbers do look like they're right, but that's. His feet appear to be sinking into the floor. It's terrible. But the point is, it has absolutely nothing to do with the copy of the piece, which I'm not entirely sure adds up as a thing anyway, promising 19K weeks and 13 to 101K months. My goodness, this man, the richest man alive. And how, are you skeptical? Don't take my word for it. My friend, I'm not taking your word for anything, particularly AI prompts on imagery. That's for damn sure. But Rowena, this is a thing, isn't it? It's become more and more and more prevalent on LinkedIn, where we have we have established lead gen companies kind of fishing for work, just kind of lead forensics will be forever knocking on everyone's doors until the end of time. But we're seeing more and more of these sort of one-man bands, these kind of like, almost like these, like Sherpas. They will guide you to the promised land. You just have to trust them. You have to trust them. And you have to trust the AI imagery as well, because it might creep you up, but it's good. What is going on here? Is it me, or is it just more of this than usual?
Well, I mean, I have to come at this as a one-woman band who does lead generation for people. Although I hope considerably more successfully than some of these organizations. I have noticed a massive increase in these adverts. And I mean, I don't know if you guys out there managed to read the copy of that particular one, but yeah, you're right, Michael. It doesn't even make sense. And how Stephen Warsall, his 1.2 million with just one employee. That's not even a sentence. It's not even a sentence. This person cannot use words good. Why are you trusting this man to do anything for you, let alone lead generation? What is going on with the toilet roll? Like, I can't get my head around the toilet roll. First of all, it's backwards. Can we all just agree that's backwards?
Yes.
You should not put the toilet roll that way around. Second of all, who is reaching the toilet roll from that distance? That's not a comfortable distance for the toilet roll to be away from the toilet. I mean, I get that that's totally by the by, but you're right. The level of exploitative here is, let's create something that stops the scroll, and then let's promise a bunch of things that we know we can't deliver, because at least then people will pay us. And there are just so many hacks in this business because people are desperate. Now, interestingly, MJO, this is the first conversation we've had since you yourself went freelance. Congratulations, by the way, a spectacular launch. But for those of us who have been doing this for a couple of years or longer, things have slowed this year. I think there is kind of an industry-wide agreement that it has been harder to land clients this year. It has been harder to generate leads. It has been harder to convert the leads that have come in. And even I've shifted the way that I do things to kind of respond to the market. I'm doing a lot more in-person type stuff now because it's shortening the sales cycle. But what that has led to is a lot of business owners starting to feel a bit desperate. It's led to people starting to feel a little bit like, hang on, is there something wrong with me? What am I getting wrong? I need help. And so out of the woodwork come all of these all of these people. I'm holding myself back from saying men, but they're all men. All of these men who, you know, have the silver bullet. They, of course, don't tell you what the silver bullet is. And, you know, I know for a fact that for some of them, the silver bullet is do 8 hours a day worth of marketing and nothing else, which, you know, just isn't sustainable. But people are feeling vulnerable. And as is always the case when people are feeling vulnerable, there's going to be a bunch of people come out and exploit it. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing over and over again. And interestingly, I suspect that if you head over to, what was his name again? You're right. It was the most disgusting name.
We'll bring him
One Man Empire. Oh, God. I suspect that if you head over to One Man Empire, you won't see a single actual screenshot of somebody giving him a great review. You won't see him on video with any happy clients. You'll just see these kind of massive claims directly from him.
Is there ever a time where one-man empire type businesses, or indeed any kind of lead gen business, that is worth any business's time? Is there a time where you can countenance it?
Well, obviously, I have a vested interest here because I'm in lead gen. That's the thing that I do. However, what I would say is, if you want to go to someone for lead gen who is using these kind of tactics for their own lead gen, is that someone you really want to trust with your lead gen? Like, I just kind of think, you know, obviously I market, obviously I do sales for my business, but the vast majority of my leads are inbound, because of the style of marketing that I do, which I, you know, pride myself as being value add, activation type marketing. If the kind of lead gen company you're going to is the sort that needs to exploit people, let's be honest, is that the kind of company you want in charge of your lead generation? If they need to be that desperate to get leads in, if they need to use underhanded tactics to get leads in, what are they going to do for you? What kind of tactics are they going to use? Are they going to be better than their own? Because that was no. Doing lead gen is a good thing. Learning how to do your own lead gen is far better than going to some third party company that's going to put in its framework that is going to hit every single time and take you to 101k months. So much wrong with that advert. There's so much wrong with that advert.
There's a lot to unpack, but I don't think that we need to unpack One Man Empire. If anything, I think we need to pack One Man Empire back in the box and send it back to him.
He doesn't deserve our time. He doesn't deserve our time, Michael.
He does not deserve our time, and it's important because we absolutely need to talk. And from One Man Empires to one-person marketing teams, and the question that was put to me on the Rec Tools podcast. There we go. I'll buzz market another person's podcast on this hopefully award-winning podcast. God willing, fingers crossed. The discussion we had on it was around the idea of what constitutes a marketing team's budget, and the arguments that was put forward was that it's not actually a bad thing if a marketing department considers the salaries of those working in it as part of a marketing budget. It made me wonder. I know there are a lot of marketers who kind of like, they'll make their skin crawl and get their hairs on the back of their neck standing up to say, well, actually, no, that's my salary for doing my job. Marketing is more than just paying my salary. There is an investment aspect to this as well, and attaching an additional budget to that is a recognition of that. Then there are some who say, well, yeah, but we hire you to come up with a strategy and to do the marketing. That's rather than paying an agency to do that, we're literally paying you. You are the budget. So where does the reality lie, Rowena?
This is a really good question, a really good one, because there's a lot of nuance in it. I have almost always been a one-woman marketing team. I'm a generalist. I work usually in B2B organizations and SMEs specifically, who do have small budgets and who do need a unicorn marketer, as they like to say. And I think that heavily sales driven organizations do tend to have this view that the salary of the marketing person is the marketing budget, because, you know, that person's going to do all of the work, which is, I mean, it's a little bit, in my opinion, of a misunderstanding of how marketing works. I don't want to bash these organizations, but I think that probably what they experience is considerably high turnover in their marketing department, because they end up with extremely burnt out marketers who just cannot do all of the things that they're being expected to do. Like, however talented a marketing person is, there is always only so much they can do without any budget. And usually at about the 18-month to 2-year point, that pot is exhausted. There is no more that can be done without further budget. So, you know, if you're working within the constraints of a current website, there's only so much you can do to improve that website without spend. You know, you can do so much on SEO yourself, but there's only so much you can do without spend on tools, without spend on experts. With branding, you can work and start to improve and start to increase brand awareness and tweak branding, but there's only so much you can do. And similarly, there's only so far you can grow without paid advertising, without PR opportunities, without awards, without sponsorship opportunities. All of these things work together to create this rich and beautiful tapestry of routes to the marketplace. If your only route to market is free social media, which is basically what people are saying when they say, no, you're the marketer, you do the marketing, you're the budget, everything needs to be for free, you're limiting yourself, you're limiting your marketer. You're only ever going to see about 20% of their talents. You're only going to see about 20% of the potential revenue. And it's a really, really odd thing, because nobody goes, well, the HR budget's spent on the HR person. Nobody would ever consider that. Nobody would ever look at ops and go, well, the ops budget is spent on the ops manager. That they just wouldn't do that. They would assume that they still need all of these different operational tools or HR tools or learning and development or whatever it is. It's only ever marketing where this is this rule is put in place. And yet marketing is where, if you spend money, you are most likely to get a return on that investment. And I think that's the difficulty I have with this mental kind of this cognitive place that CEOs sit in, where no, the budget is on the person. You cannot get ROI from that. You cannot. It's a very, very limited amount that you can bring in. Whereas if you give me creative budget to go and work out where to advertise, if you go and give me creative budget to create white papers and use them as lead generating tools, and put together some really great automations, if you give me budget to install conversational marketing on the website, if you give me budget to do these things, I can return it to you tenfold. I know that I can. But if you don't give me that budget, you can't get that return. And that's why I think it's really bizarre that marketing sits in that place where, well, no, we're not going to give you budget, just do the thing, because the biggest area to lose out on, a huge amounts, and companies literally leave, and I'm talking millions, literally leave millions on the table, but by not coughing up 50 grand.
It's interesting to me because I feel that the other part of this conversation is the way that these marketing teams end up being constructed. So rather than thinking, okay, we need to be top, go from the top and then go down, that we need someone to be, a de facto CMO or a director or even a head of marketing or even just a senior marketing manager, and have them build out a team of which we will, finance through salary, et cetera, et cetera. It's right. What's the cheapest way we can try and just get some marketing done? So inevitably you end up hiring sort of, the absolute worst case scenario, sort of like this quasi administrative marketing hybrid job where you're just doing a bit of marketing, where that's literally it. And you have, aspirations to grow and develop a marketing career, but you have been told you have to bide your time and, do your hours doing the admin stuff. And then, maybe we'll, see if there's a promotion for you to be marketing manager at some point. And that the thing that drives me insane is that you become the kind of marketer who just becomes very good at doing marketing for one particular company. You don't develop, you don't grow, you don't evolve. But at the same time, there's no kind of leader at the top saying, all right, this is the field we're going to play on. This is how we're going to do it. And I think that those businesses are those kind of businesses who do pull out the marketing budget is your salary, jump to it.
Yeah, and there's a fundamental flaw here, right? For these businesses, they've got, probably in their minds, they've got two choices. They can either spend on a higher level marketer, someone who's strategic. They can spend on that kind of marketing manager, senior marketing manager, head of marketing level person with all the experience, and know that they're probably not going to be able to give them straight away the budget that they need to do all of the things that they'd want to do. And it would be perfectly possible, of course, for that to happen, gradually over time. No, I don't think there are many marketers who would walk into a business and go, give me 50 grand immediately. Like, I think most of us who are used to working in SMEs are likely to go, okay, well, let's see how much we can do on a shoestring. Let's look at the return we get from that and start to invest in it after that. But yeah, their choices are to get someone in who can give that leadership and invest in it a little bit, but know that means they can't spend so much on the other stuff. Or they can get someone in right at the bottom, your 22-year-old social media manager, and get them doing stuff. But the result of that is there's no one to lead that person. There's no one to create the strategy. And so the stuff that person's doing is going to take a lot longer to bring any return back, because the reality is they don't know how to do marketing in a way that is going to bring that return, because it's not strategic. It's just doing some stuff. And it all comes down to, I think, the fundamental understanding or misunderstanding, as is often, that the kind of board level people have of what the marketing function is. Is marketing there to kind of show that we are doing stuff, or is marketing there to create revenue? Which is why that's why I do lead generation as opposed to so many of the other types of or areas of marketing, because for me, revenue generation is always the most exciting, the most fun, the most creative in many ways parts of marketing. But I think that there needs to be better education or better advocacy on company boards for what marketing is there to do, and the impact of bringing in someone, exactly as you say, at that higher level, to be able to drive strategy, who can then start to create that revenue much quicker. And then the commitment to invest that revenue back into marketing, and not just put it on the bottom line, because that's how you continually increase the revenue from marketing. And I mean, maybe that's the argument for people like us, for those, freelance marketers, dare I say, fractional CMOs, those self-employed, extremely experienced people that can come in and set that strategy and hold the hand of more junior employers. I don't know.
Absolutely. And well, we have issues, of course, Rowena, and absolutely need to talk. And speaking of fractional CMOs, this is something that has been on your mind. What's the haps?
Well, so I have never called myself a fractional CMO. I know people who do and respect them greatly as marketers, but I just wonder, I suppose the question that is percolating in my head is why fractional CMOs? Like, what is the benefit of having or being a fractional CMO as opposed to just being employed as a head of marketing at an organization? Is this, a route for exploitation? Does this really sit inside IR35? Are there issues that we need to talk about in terms of the legality of the situation? Is this about making high-level marketing positions more open and flexible to women in the workplace? What is it about this kind of generalist, not very clearly defined role that seems to be gathering speed right now? What is it?
I find it so interesting, and we were talking about this. Can we say off air? We can say off air that there's so many people out there, so many marketers out there who not only promote themselves as being a fractional CMO, but have like a laundry list of places where they have fractionally CMO'd. And so it's a little bit like anyone who puts in their LinkedIn or their Twitter, refuse to call it X, bio, ex-employee of this major company and this major company. And it's a little bit like, is it legitimacy by association, or is it meant to actually say anything? But the thing is, I look at fractional CMO and I think, were you acting as a CMO, or is there what does that role actually entail, and how invested is in an organization in not only the development but the idea of marketing if the person they've brought in to lead it is not really part of the team? Why did you go with an agency?
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because both you and I have set up our kind of self-employed empires with, I think, what I would call offers. So, you can come to us, you come to one or both of us and take up a strategy from us, or you can take up some delivery from us. But they're very defined and they're outcome based. So we say, you come to us and we will do X, Y, and Z for you, and the results are likely to be this. I mean, obviously, we can't promise any specific results, but it's all about the outcomes that they're going to have with us. I feel like the fractional CMO thing, it's so fundamentally different to kind of our business model, and maybe that's my failing. I don't know, but it's this concept of, I will come and what I will advocate for marketing. I will be your marketer. Like, how can you be the board member responsible for marketing if you are not part of the company? I think that's the question that keeps going around my head. Like, don't get me wrong, I see why this is an attractive proposition, but it's like, how is that different from a non-exec director, for example? How can you really embed yourself in the team? Are you office based? Are you not office based? Do you have employees under you? Like, I suppose the question I'm asking is, CMOs out there, fractional CMOs out there, come at me in the comments and tell me what is great about what you do. Tell me why you organize what you do the way you do, and why that's, why that works for you. Because I guess I struggle with it. There we are. I struggle with it.
I think it's interesting. This seems to kind of come in flows as well, as whether or not businesses want to hire CMOs or whether they want to fire CMOs, whether they want to invest in marketing or whether they want to drop marketing. And it sort of strikes me that the fractional CMO is marketing's attempt at having it both ways. That you can, it's the same way that, you know, marketers kind of like indulge endlessly, and not present company excluded, because we're the good ones. It's sort of like an endless abbreviations and buzzwords and tech jargon, because we feel that if it's more technical, it's more legitimate. Therefore, that legitimacy kind of washes on us.
Yeah.
And there are trends. You know, you have a fractional CFO, you have a fractional, you know, CEO, which, in my opinion, just still feels like, you know, it's part time. It's you know, it's acting senior level, and it struck me as being the kind of role a business would bring on and an individual would take up if they're not too sure what it is they're doing. So it's a little bit like, it's the situationship of the job world.
Yeah, and I suppose like fundamentally it comes back to the question I've got is, what is the difference between a fractional CMO and a marketing consultant? And yeah, to me, it feels like it's a way of getting out of having outcomes. I don't know. It's a question that I'm putting out there into the universe and hoping that people educate me on.
So I'm sure this will spurn a whole heap of discussion from a few noted faces that we all know and love and see hanging out on LinkedIn.com. Rowena, that is everything we have here on We Need to Talk. If people want to get in touch with you, and you are someone who enjoys having people get in touch with, particularly when it comes to talking all things marketing, how can they do that?
I mean, I would absolutely love you to get in touch with me. I am predominantly all over the cursed website, linkedin.com, and I apologize for that. If you connect with me, I will always say, yes, come and be part of my family. Always feel free to drop me a message. I do have a website, but currently is not nearly as beautiful as yours, Michael. It's currently in redevelopment. So you can find me at wildingmarketing.co.uk, but that's about to become considerably nicer come September than it is now. You can get me on Instagram too, on Wilding Marketing. And just as ever, I mean, I'm all about collaboration over competition. And I think I've said this about 100 times since you went freelance yourself. Please do feel free to get in touch with me, but Michael's a better marketer than me, so you might be better off getting in touch with him. I don't know.
I play the Uno reverse card on you on that one. I think that if there's anyone in the world, in particular in B2B, who don't just want practical advice on how to do marketing or how to actually implement a marketing strategy, but just solid business advice, Rowena is the one to go to.
I did do it with a baby, and if you can do it with a baby, you can do it under any circumstances. It's true.
She's a genius. That's what she's saying. That is all the time that we have here on We Need to Talk. Yes, Rowena Wilding from Wilding Marketing there. And yeah, fractional CMOs, get in the comments. What the hell do you do? Who are you? What are you about? What's the story there? I'm just as baffled now, having rewatched that interview, as I was to begin with. Like, it strikes me as you're a halfway house. Are you a halfway house? What's the value? Please get at us in the comments. We actually are dying to find out. And hey, we very much want to know as much as we can about the wonderful world in which you occupy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. That is a wrap on this week's performance of the Marketing Matinee. My thanks to Livvy Moore and Rowena Wilding, and to you, gentle listener, for inviting us into your screens and your ears. Remember, you can follow the show on LinkedIn and YouTube and everywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Marketing Matinee with MJO. And if you're a freelancer or a small business who wants to get their head around marketing, MJO Creative is on hand to deliver marvelous marketing for fabulous firms. Everything from bespoke marketing plans through to brilliant delivery of your current strategy, MJO Creative has you covered. Plus, you get to work with this guy, you lucky sod. So drop me a DM on the cursed website LinkedIn, or visit the MJO Creative website at mjocreative.co.uk for more. And we'll be back again with another show. But until then, keep sane and please collect your coats from the lobby. I'm MJO, and this is the Marketing Matinee. Tra-la-la.